So I'm a user interface programmer at Psyonix. I work mainly on Rocket League. And here today, I'm going to talk to you about the importance of company culture. So right now I'm going to talk about, I guess, the studio, a little bit about the history, Rocket League, how we've grown, and basically the principles that got us to where we are right now. Real quick, a show of hands, who has heard of Psyonix before Rocket League came out? So not too many of you at all. Okay, cool. Just so you know, Psyonix has been around for over 15 years. It's an established company. It started as a small company, an independent developer, with one person, Dave Haywood. He was working on contract for Epic Games at the time. And slowly, Dave was able to build a small team, continue working on contract work for Epic. He was building contacts there and getting better at the Unreal Engine. Because of those contacts and expertise, they were able to keep getting contracts for different projects, different AAA projects, in fact. So UT 2004, Gears of War, Bulletstorm, Mass Effect, XCOM, a list of games that we've been able to work on. Basically, we're a company that you don't really hear about, but we work on really huge games. So one of the reasons we got here, one of the main principles of Psyonix is making sure that we always have work. So we concentrate on sustainability and stability. We always make sure that there's income, there's revenue coming in. That way we have the ability to keep the lights on, pay the bills, and then we allocate a little bit of time to our passion projects and our prototyping. Now, because of the patience that we've had and following our principles, we're experiencing tremendous growth. We've kept those contracts for a while. When we prototyped on and iterated on our passion projects and our game, and eventually led to Rocket League. And curious, who here has heard of Rocket League? So a lot more of you. Okay, that's good. It's good to know. For those of you who are not familiar with Rocket League, it's basically soccer with arcade-style rocket-powered cars. So I guess in order to get some people up to speed, I will show a short trailer. So this is a trailer that came out in February 2016. It came out not quite a year after, but several months after the initial release on PS4. So yeah, here's the trailer from the Xbox One release. You guys can go ahead and check it out. Cool, so what a lot of you might not know is that Rocket League is actually a sequel to an older game that we made called Supersonic Acrobatic Rocket-Powered Battle Cars. It was launched in 2008. It's a real similar concept to Rocket League, but it just didn't garner the same reception. And because of that, we were able to continue working on the game, reiterate the process, and come out with a better game, the sequel, which is Rocket League. We're able to concentrate our efforts on things like matchmaking, party systems, dedicated servers, and then marketing, and actually adding tons and tons of polish to the original game. And it was originally a Steam game, and came out on multiple platforms. And we continued to do contract work up until till after the success of Rocket League. One of the last contracts we worked on was, I believe, Nosgoth for Square Enix. And that was canceled shortly after Rocket League came out. So now, Rocket League is a household name. It's been about 2 years now, July 2015, since the initial release. Since then, we've gotten a ton of awards and just a ton of success, luckily. On Steam, we're a platinum game. It just means we're a bestseller on the PC platform. PS4 in 2016, they announced us as the best-selling PS4 game in North America and Europe. And then just a quick overview of some of the stats of how big Rocket League is right now. We currently have over 34 million players, where normally games tend to drop down in player retention. Our game continues to grow, mainly because of this large community we have. Right now there are over 1.6 billion matches played and counting, which is an insane amount. And we have, as of this last month, we have 6.1 regular monthly players. So it's people that keep coming back and playing the game. And a lot of people watch Rocket League online, so we have 35 million Twitch viewers right now, too. And all this growth obviously leads to changes in the company. And since we started as an indie company, we have to kind of evolve with it. And so we've decided, and it's important to maintain a lot of the same core principles we had before while we were an indie as we grow, in order to not let our heads get too big, really. So from this graph, you can see in July, when we launched Rocket League, there was about 37 employees total in the studio, and probably less than half were working on Rocket League at the time, because we still had contract work from Square Enix, and we're still working on Nosgoth. But after the game launched, and after Nosgoth got canceled, and because of the success we experienced, we were able to move away completely from contract work, and we're able to keep Rocket League as our main revenue maker. And we've been slowly growing since then. Now 2 years in, we had 87 employees last month. It's honestly growing. It's probably more than 90 now. One of the things that we do is we're trying to make sure we stay small as we grow. Again, we try to focus on core principles, which is making sure we can pay the bills. And we allocate resources when we have them. We don't put all of our eggs into one basket. Also, because we've grown so large, we've basically doubled in size, or almost tripled in size. We have broken up into smaller teams and more departments, so that each team and each department has a smaller, intimate feel. And so we retain some of the independent game atmosphere. And some of the departments have expanded a little bit, and we've added different departments, where a lot of times we've been outsourcing some work. We've now done things like, we used to outsource customer service completely. Now a lot of customer service is still outsourced, but it's managed internally. So just slowly moving roles internally as we go. And even though we're normally a contract developer by reputation, we normally get hired to do other people's work. We still do the same thing. We outsource other people to do work for us. And that's normally when, some roles, they have a tendency to change in demand. They have varying requirements. And so when there's a tendency of like to ebb and flow, there's we want to try to outsource that role. That way we don't end up wasting someone's time or end up having to lay someone off. And when we do hire, we only try to hire out of necessity when we feel someone has a solid future at the company and longevity. Someone that's going to stay there and stick to the end. Now we have a lot more senior and lead developer roles, but it's a little bit different from what you would expect. A lot of larger companies or a lot of studios, senior and leads tend to micromanage teams. The role that they play at Psyonix is more of an advocacy role. They make sure that they advocate on behalf of their teams when they're in larger meetings, larger design meetings, and they make sure that they communicate back all the information from those meetings to their teams. Really they're more of an ambassador rather than micromanaging. Another thing that's changed is we've structured our management a little bit differently. We used to have a pretty flat management structure, which means there wasn't really a clear divide between executives and developers. Now that's kind of changed because we've just grown so big and we have to do it. So we try to maintain that flat-like structure. Employees are still left to self-manage, and that's a lot of what we try to look for when we're hiring. And we still have producers, but they tend to manage products and scheduling rather than manage actual employees. So if you notice, there's a picture on the right. That is the building we work in. We just moved there in July. Because of Rocket League, we're able to upgrade to a brand new studio. It's about 4 times the space of our last studio. Here's a picture just to give you an idea of how many people we have now. There's the 87 or so people that were present when we moved into the building in July. There's a lot of cool things with having just the new building. We're able to personalize the space a lot more. We don't have to share the space with other companies in the same office. All of the spaces, all of our conference rooms are Rocket League and Psyonix adorned, so they have cars that are named after the different cars in Rocket League, and they have signage everywhere. And all the cubicles are personalized. It's a really fun place to actually go into and work every day. It's a huge upgrade and a huge change from our last office. And then one of the things we do in and out of the office to make things more, casual, relaxed, and more intimate inside the work environment is several things. One is we keep close quarters in the office. It's not spread out. If you want to talk to someone, usually you can see them within eyesight. You can walk up to them if you need something from them. We still have cubicles, but the desks, the cubicle walls are extremely short, so they don't block your view, they don't hide people. It gives you the chance to see and look over people's shoulders and see the new features that are coming out, and it gives you the chance to just talk to people in open air, in open communication, because a lot of times just person-to-person communication will end up turning into office-wide discussions. It's very common for that to happen. We try to keep an open flow of communication, at least between the executives and the employees now. So the CEO, the studio head, Dave Hagewood, he keeps regular office hours. He just has the door open in his office. You can come in and talk to him about any matter, whether it's if you want to pitch a new idea, or if you're having issues at home. He's literally there to talk about anything, and he's not always accessible, but he is accessible to an extent. We also have regular company events, very regular company events, and we have weekly dinners. With all the events we have, we're always encouraged to bring friends and family, even if it's inside the office. It's something that I haven't been used to before, just because of confidentiality reasons. This summer, so just last month, we had our annual picnic. We had a mechanical bull riding contest. Explains the picture in the bottom corner of the screen. I still have a scar on my knee from riding the bull. And then actually the same month, we had another event. It was the San Diego Padres went to a baseball game as a company. We just rented out an entire space. And those types of things just gives you a chance to see people outside of the office, see people in their element, and just get to know people better, see them with their families and things. And then we do have weekly dinners. Every Friday, we have basically catered food and beers brought into the office. Family and friends are always invited. And we just talk about what is going on with the studio, if there's anything new, and hang out, maybe play Magic, do whatever is on the agenda for that week. And usually it's something casual to like have fun and relax. And that happens every Friday. So another way we go into making sure that we retain the independent game principles, independent game studio principles that we had before, is we just make sure to include everyone in everything. So a lot of employees wear many hats. There's a lot of employees that started from when Psyonix was extremely new. So there's a lot of people with just many different talents. So yeah, people are encouraged to help out other departments and basically offer input wherever they want, and everyone shares input. So we actually garner input from everyone. There's an irregular play test every week. We ask people to share their input, feedback about the game, about Rocket League. We encourage people to share new ideas. We ask for new prototype concepts. And there's a spreadsheet that gets circulated every time there's an update about naming different things and naming different items in the game, toppers and cars and things like that. But mostly, everyone's input is taken into consideration, and we think that's incredibly important. And we also try to make sure that communication happens openly, internally, as far as like confidential information. So there are regular announcements in the company. We constantly get told of what's actually going on in the studio, what's coming up, what features are promised to be released, things like that. No one's left in the dark or left guessing if something is going to happen or not. There's always someone to ask, and there's always a way to find out. We have monthly town halls. So at the beginning or end of the month, we'll have just a brief overview of how the studio as a whole is doing and how Rocket League as a whole is doing, whether there's an uptick or a downtick. And it's confidential information that can't be shared outside the studio, but within the studio, it's fully transparent. And it's something that I'm honestly not used to. In previous jobs, I've ended up finding release dates for games after the public has found out release dates. So another thing we do is we focus on management and scheduling, just to everything kind of overlaps or comes back to keeping the independent culture. So one thing we do is we try to keep the schedule flexible. So we allocate extra time And we know that everyone just works differently at different paces, and things change. So we make sure that the schedule can change and not the hours of the people working. Another point would be we have set core hours. So we have hours set from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., and it's mostly for meetings and coordination. You're not punished if you leave early. So if you leave at 5 o'clock, that's completely fine. It's not considered leaving early. If you work just an 8-hour day, that's perfectly acceptable. There's no one expects you to stay earlier or past those core hours. And if you need to change your work, that's why we keep the schedule flexible. In order to do that, we have to concentrate on risk management. So because of all the unforeseen problems that arise, you just have to put a little bit of effort into investigating those problems, looking forward, looking for possible gotchas, and then trying to adjust your schedule according-wise. And last, we try to avoid crunch at all costs. At Psyonix, we're really cognizant of everyone having a work-life balance. So when things come down to it, if we need to, people will step up. But we try to avoid crunch because it leads to just a lot of derogatory things. It leads to burnout, unproductivity, and it just creates an atmosphere that's exactly opposite of what I'm basically trying to preach right now. It creates an atmosphere of where you don't want to go to work because you're going to have to work overtime. So, and then the general takeaway from this presentation is that have to persevere, and that we realize that employees are the most valuable resource. Our studio is living proof of that. If you invest in your employees, you basically achieve stability and success. Cutting corners just doesn't work for us. When we released SARP battle cars, that was in 2008. We worked on it for 7 more years until we released Rocket League. So, we've been at it for a long time. But most of the people who released SARP battle cars also released Rocket League. So they've been there for a long time, and they're very loyal to the company for a very specific reason. And patience and persistence. Like I said, it took 7 years before SARP battle cars was made into Rocket League. And before that, we had to continue doing contract work with other companies just to stay afloat and to just to keep working on our prototype. If you put all your eggs in one basket, you don't know if it's going to succeed, so you just have to wait it out and just try to sustain as long as you can. And last but not least, we try to stick to the original vision and our original principles. We started as an indie company. Even though we're growing, we want to stay like an indie company. Obviously, we can't continue to be an independent company if we grow too big, but we would like to at least keep the core values, no matter how big the company gets. And I'd like to thank you guys for watching my presentation, and I guess I'll leave it open for any questions.
First one's really easy. What level are you in Rocket League?
What level? So honestly, ranked, I'm Silver 2, and then as far as XP, I think I'm like level 50 something.
That's a serious grind. You put your time in for sure. Is that part of the interview process at all? Is that part of the interview process at all? You just sit down and play some Rocket League and see what the person's got?
So it's actually not really part of the process. It's kind of funny. A lot of people end up just playing Rocket League in their downtime. Like we have a lot of matches that go on during lunch. We have a lot of matches that go on before work and after work. And then like I was mentioning, we have the Friday dinners. A lot of those end up turning into, after dinner, a huge Rocket League match between all the employees.
That's awesome. And oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I have a couple questions for you. First one is, do you guys focus on diversity hiring as a priority? And if so, how do you balance that with keeping an indie culture and also the requirements being able to wear many hats?
So as far as diversity, it's not something that we focus on. When we do look for potential hires, usually we wait for a requirement first, and when we find that requirement, we look for someone who would fit it best. And if that person has like multiple talents, then that is definitely an incentive, but it's not necessarily something we focus on. But if one candidate versus another candidate has a lot more diverse talent, we'll probably tend to take the person that has a more diverse set of talents.
And then I was wondering if you guys have considered actually banning overtime, like just as a company, just forbidding employees from working more than 8 hours a day.
I don't know if we've considered it. It's not something that I would know if it's been like bounced around like the execs. But normally we just kind of let people self-manage themselves, and if we see that someone is going like over 8 hours every day, we just kind of tap them on the shoulder and let them know like, hey, you should probably leave. It's really casual, so it ends up not being a problem.
Thanks for your talk.
Thank you.
So there's a lot of content in Rocket League, a seemingly infinite amount of content, which is amazing and probably keeps you guys really busy. I'm wondering, like, given this sort of freewheeling, casual atmosphere that you guys have built, has anybody ever managed to like slip something in the game that maybe like made it through a couple checks? It doesn't have to be derogatory or anything like that, but like, has anything like just made it past like a last check where it was like every time they see that, they know that was their little joke and it kind of makes their day?
So there's nothing that's really snuck by the game, but I do have kind of an anecdote I could share. One thing that happened is when we did release Rocket League, we didn't think it was going to be a major success. So the community that we had garnered before with SART battle cars, or supersonic acrobatic battle cars, or rocket-powered battle cars, a lot of those people, it was kind of a cult following. A lot of those people knew that the studio head, Dave Hagewood, hated bread. So one of the things that happened was when he was in an official Twitch stream, when we launched the first week, he promised that if the game had made 10,000 players by the end of the week, he would actually eat bread, which is something, he absolutely hates bread. It's kind of like a joke or like a meme inside the community or in the office. And we ended up getting over 10,000 players. We ended up getting 183,000. So it led to this. We tweeted this the same week that we launched, but basically he had to live up to his promise, and we filled his entire office with bread. And if you look in the game, there's actually there's like a bread antenna topper, which is kind of a shout out to this moment in history. But it's there are a lot of like little inside jokes and things, but not all of them make it into the game.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Asa. I really appreciate your time, and thanks for telling us all about how you guys are keeping the indie feeling alive. All right, big round of applause for Asa, please.